Hi everyone! How are all of you, my friends? I'm so excited to be here with you today. Hey, before I start, I always ask this question. I see so many messages saying, how are you? So excited. Good evening. A session with you after such a long time. Yes! And I see Disha here again. Hi Disha. Hi Prasoon. Hi Harshita. Hey, can I be seen and can I be heard? If I can be seen and heard, please just give me a thumbs up so that then I can get all excited and continue. Okay, so Aditi has already given me a thumbs up. And hi Carol, hi Himlata, hi Avni, hi Shrishti, hi Neil, hi Amrita, hi Chiku, hi Hema. My God, so many of my friends are over here. And so many thumbs ups. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I saw so many comments saying I'm so excited and eagerly waiting for your session. I want to tell you that I'm so excited. I've literally been waiting to be with all of you here today. So my dear friends, a very big warm welcome to BYJU'S 9 to 10 session on civics. Now, I see a lot of names over here that I have met before. So thank you for joining us again. I'm very excited to have you back this year with us. A fresh new academic year. We're looking forward to lots and lots of things. Is civics my favorite subject? You got a question over there. Go ahead and answer. Is civics your favorite subject? I'm not going to tell you what my favorite subject is, but you can go ahead and answer. You've got a question there. Is civics your favorite subject? Go ahead and click on either yes or no. Please say yes. Okay, so very big warm welcome. I'm like I said, I'm very excited to see all of you here again. To all my old students, a very warm welcome to you again, and to my new students who have joined us just this year, a very warm welcome to all of you. Okay, now whether you're an old student or a new student, it doesn't matter. I want to tell you that this year we're at the beginning of the academic year and we're looking forward to lots of sessions with you. Okay, so I see the poll having been answered. 66% of the people say yes and 33% say no. Okay, well, we're all allowed our preferences, right? I think we all have some of our subjects, so like some people would say history is my favorite, some people will say civics is my favorite, some people will say English is my favorite. It doesn't really matter. The important thing over here is, irrespective of what your favorite subject is, we must make an attempt to learn everything to the best of our ability. And once we've learned it and we've enjoyed the process of learning, you will actually find that your favorite subject doesn't really matter anymore, because when you enjoy the process of learning, everything becomes your favorite. And I can vouch for this because this is something that I have experienced. So many people ask me, ma'am, which is your favorite subject? And I find it so difficult to answer, because the fact is, when we're learning and we're learning happily, everything becomes our favorite, right? So I really hope that at the start of this academic year and through the academic year, with all the sessions that we have, learning becomes most important to you. Learning becomes fun for you, and you will find that all the subjects are easy peasy, and when they're easy peasy for you, they will become your favorite subjects also. Right? So, as BYJU'S says, come fall in love with learning. Okay, now, today we are, let me tell you that the difference between this year and what we did last year, we know that this channel for 8, 9, 10 was launched last year. Now we have channel 9 and 10, and then we have another separate channel for 6, 7, 8. So if you haven't subscribed to both, please go ahead and subscribe to both channels, because there's going to be some exciting stuff that is happening on both our channels. Okay, and I'm going to be taking sessions on both, so I would love to see you all on both channels. Go ahead, tell your friends, go ahead, tell your families, because we have got lots of exciting stuff planned for you. See, the difference is, last year when we launched the channel, we started sometime in October, right, which was just a little bit before our term 1 exams. So we were sort of quickly scrambling to finish our syllabus. This year, we are here right at the beginning of the academic year. So we have a long time. We have tons of time to prepare. We've got tons of time to learn. We've got tons of time to practice. So all in all, it's going to be a very, very exciting year. And I'm really excited. All right. Now, let's go ahead and let's see what our chapter for today is. Our chapter for today is a civics chapter. We're going to be dealing with chapter 1 of civics for grade 10, which is power sharing. Very interesting chapter. I actually grew to love this chapter because the concepts are actually so interesting, and we're going to make it as interesting for you as possible so that you also start finding this chapter really easy and you will start to really like it too. Now, before I go ahead to explain how I'm going to be explaining this chapter to you, first, since it's about power sharing, let's understand what power sharing is. Okay, so what is power sharing? Can you see this image over here? You can see that the power is being divided or distributed among so many people, right? Over here in the image. So typically the definition of power sharing is what? Is the distribution of power between different organs and levels of the government so that power is not concentrated in any one hand, right? Now, why do we want power not to be concentrated in any one hand? Well, that could be not a very good thing, right? Just imagine if there was just one person who was controlling everything, and imagine that it's a really vast country, okay? Which means this person, this single person, this one hand of power has the power to make any sort of decision that they want for the entire country. Imagine that. Would that be a great thing? I think not, right? Because then the person is not taking into account all the different people, their interests, right? There are so many different kinds of people, so many social groups. He's not taking into the interests of everyone. He's just doing, he or she or they are just doing what they want, which is not a very good thing. Apart from that, if we have power concentrated in the hands of just one person, what if the person falls ill? What will happen? Will the administration of the country come to an end? We can't have that, right? So basically, concentration of power in one hand is not a good thing, and this is solved by power sharing, and this is exactly what we're going to be talking about. I see a lot of answers over here. Power sharing is the division of power between organs or levels of government. Disha, yes, you are right. Aditi says power sharing is a political arrangement in which different or opposing groups take part in government together. Yes, absolutely right. Ma'am, will there be Menti today with your excitement? No, no Menti today. But I think my excitement will tide you through, right? Okay, so we know what power sharing is, right? Hi Himani, how are you? I'm happy to see you here again. Welcome. Okay. Okay, Shruti, you want me to explain again? Shruti, just for you, please. Power sharing is basically the distribution of power between different organs and between different levels of the government so that power is not concentrated on one hand. It is very, very simple. Power is distributed or divided between different organs and different levels of government, okay? Because we don't want it to be concentrated in one person's hand. I've just explained why it should not be concentrated in a single person's hand, right? Correct. It can lead to absolute rule if power sharing will not be there. Absolutely right. Yeah. Okay. Now, we've discussed a lot about what power sharing is. Let's go ahead and see how we are going to approach this chapter. Okay. So, we're going to basically be dividing this chapter into 3 subtopics, as we can see over here. The first subtopic is case studies of Sri Lanka and Belgium. And let me tell you, these are so exciting. You will understand what happened in these 2 countries, and you will understand how different they are, okay, through the case studies. And through the case studies, you will also understand why power sharing is desirable. right? And apart from that, we will also go ahead to learn forms of power sharing. So we've got a very exciting chapter ahead of us. Disha says if power is concentrated in one hand, it is not a democratic setup. Absolutely right. Okay. Nibha says, ma'am, we love your teaching because of your excitement and passion to teach us. Thank you, Nibha. And yes, I am so excited, and I love teaching you all. It's a fact, okay? Yes, it is distribution of power between different organs, but hey, if I keep chatting with you, we won't be able to finish what we've planned today. So let's first finish what we have, and then if we have some time, we'll still go ahead and chat some more. I think everyone is so excited because we've come back after a really long time, right? Well, the excitement is mutual. Let's go ahead. Yes, you can go ahead and take notes in the book yourself. You can write it in a notebook. You can write it wherever you want, please. The most important thing is that you do take the notes, because these notes are what will help you in your revision later, right? And we know that revision is so important. So, okay. Let's go on to our first subtopic for today, which is case studies of Sri Lanka and Belgium. Ta-da! Okay, let's start with our first country that we have on the list. We have over here the first case study, which is the case study of Sri Lanka. Now, just take a look at the map. I know that all of you know where Sri Lanka is in context to India, right? It's quite close to India. We know where it is situated. So take a look at it, and we will go ahead and understand a little bit more about this country. So Rohan says, I love Sri Lanka. Yes, that's good. So we're learning more about it. And you, Rohan, will understand more about what happens in the country that you love so much, right? Yes, it is our neighboring country. Sri Lanka is an island nation that is located in South Asia, and it is just a few kilometers off the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. So yes, it is a neighboring country. It's quite close to us. Now, Sri Lanka, actually, it's very interesting. They became an independent nation a little bit after India. India got its independence in 1947. Sri Lanka got its independence a couple of months after that in 1948. Okay, now let us understand who the people of Sri Lanka are and how they are sort of divided. Okay, so Sri Lanka as a country, let me tell you, it has a population of approximately 2 crore people. Now, this country has a lot of social divisions. Now, what do we mean by social division? Social division means different groups, which means you have people in the country who speak different languages. You have people in the same country who belong to different religions. So, let's see how this 2 crore population was divided. Okay, now, out of this 2 crore population, you had 74% of this population that were actually Sinhala speakers. So what is Sinhala? Sinhala is like the native language of Sri Lanka. So 74% of these people spoke the Sinhala, or basically they were Sinhalese. We have 18% who were Tamil speakers. Okay, now these Tamil speakers were further divided into 13% being Sri Lankan Tamils and 5% being Indian Tamils. Now, what is the difference between Sri Lankan Tamils and Tamils? Well, the Indian Tamils, well, they're both Tamil speaking, okay? But Sri Lankan Tamils are the natives of Sri Lanka. Whereas the Indian Tamils have basically come in from India. So they may have come in as plantation workers, or they may have come in for jobs, but basically they are from India and now they are residing in Sri Lanka. Okay, so in terms of language, we know that there are 2 major groups. The majority language being spoken over here is Sinhala, and you have the other group being Tamil speakers. Now, what about differences in terms of religion? What is the religion? What are the different religions practiced over here? Well, let me tell you that most of the Sinhala speaking population were Buddhists. Okay, and then you had the Tamil speaking population who were practicing Hinduism as well as Islam, so they were Hindus and Muslims, and we had 7% Christians who were both Tamil and Sinhala speaking. So what do we understand from this data over here? We understand that the majority in terms of language was what? Majority of language, the linguistic group which was a majority over here were the Sinhala speaking people or the Sinhala speaking population. And in terms of religion, the majority religion being practiced over here was Buddhism, right? Now we've understood how this country has been divided in terms of social divisions. Let us go ahead and let us understand what is the problem in Sri Lanka. Shruti says, ma'am, can we make notes? Yes, Shruti, you must make notes. It's absolutely necessary so that you can then refer to these notes later. It's always very helpful to do that, right? Yes, please write your own notes, okay? You don't need to take out any notes. You don't need to refer to the textbook right now, but make notes while we are taking this session. It will help you later on. Okay, now, what was the problem in Sri Lanka? We understood that there were two major languages and different religions over here in Sri Lanka. The problem was that there was conflict between the Sinhala speaking population and the Tamil speaking population. Right now, wherever there are social groups or people who speak different languages, who practice different religions, there's always bound to be a little bit of conflict, right? It's about how we manage that conflict. Correct? Conflict is something that we can't change. It's about how we approach that conflict, how we manage that conflict. Now, here in Sri Lanka, this conflict started becoming a lot because the Tamil-speaking people felt that they were not being treated very well, that there was differential treatment for the Sinhala-speaking majority. Okay, so basically what happens over here in this country is this feeling was sort of accelerated because the government in Sri Lanka, which was a democratically elected government, they adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy in Sri Lanka. Okay, before I go ahead and tell you what these measures are, let us understand what is meant by the term majoritarianism. Correct. Disha, yes, we will be coming to the majoritarian measures. Let's just get into first what is majoritarianism. Majoritarianism is a belief that the majority community, I forgot to change the slide. I was getting so excited about teaching you. I forgot to change the slide. So what is majoritarianism? Majoritarianism is the belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way it wants, even if it means disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. That's what majoritarianism is, okay? Now, this is what the government in Sri Lanka believed in, and that was what led to a lot of problems. So this government over here, they established a series of majoritarian measures that then led to further problems. Let us understand what these majoritarian measures were. So number one, in 1956, Sinhala was declared as the only official language in Sri Lanka. The only official language in Sri Lanka. Now just imagine, just because they are the majority, they've been declared as the only official language in Sri Lanka. What about the people who speak other languages? Wouldn't the Tamils feel left out? Well, that's exactly what happened. The Tamils were not very happy with the situation. Apart from that, there was a new constitution that stipulated that the state shall protect and foster Buddhism. Now, again, we know that there were so many people of different religions over here. You had the Buddhists, you had the Hindus, you had the Muslims, you had the Christians. Naturally, the other religious groups are going to feel bad about this, right? If only the interests of Buddhism are being promoted over here. So this also led to more conflict. Apart from that, like an icing on the cake was that there was preferential treatment that was being given to Sinhala speakers. What does this mean? That the government jobs and the well-paying jobs, all these were reserved for the Sinhala-speaking people. And the Tamil-speaking people literally felt like they have no chance to get any of these jobs over here. So obviously there was going to be a lot of anger about this, right? And this led to more conflict and growing tension between the Sinhalese and the Tamils in Sri Lanka. So what happened over here now? The Sri Lankan Tamils from Sri Lanka, they basically launched parties and they launched struggles. Why? Because they felt that the major political parties that were led by the Buddhist Sinhala leaders were very insensitive to their language and their culture. So they were very, very angry about this. Right? Apart from that, they also felt that the constitution and government policies denied them equal political rights and they discriminated against them. Now, naturally, if this sort of feeling is there and the government has taken measures to show that the majority Sinhala people are more important to them, naturally it's going to lead to a lot of anger, right? So, what happened as a result of this? The Tamil-speaking people over there, they started demanding that they wanted recognition of Tamil also as the official language. They said, why only Sinhala? We want recognition of Tamil also. It should be an official language, right? Apart from this, what else did they want? Naturally, they wanted equality of opportunity and they wanted regional autonomy. Basically, they wanted an area in Sri Lanka where they could basically govern themselves and they could rule and make the rules themselves. That is what regional autonomy is, right? So this conflict kept increasing, and by the 1980s, there were several political organizations which were actually going ahead and demanding for a separate Tamil state or a separate Tamil Elam, as it is called. So what is the problem over here? In the country of Sri Lanka itself, you have one group of people that say, we want regional autonomy, we want this as our official language, we want to be able to rule ourselves. Now remember, this is all happening within a country, right? So what happened in Sri Lanka as a result of this tension was civil war. Okay. Prachi, ma'am, should I make sticky notes or handed notes? Prachi, any sort of notes. It really doesn't matter over here. The important thing is you quickly scribble down what you're learning in the session because this will help you later. Right? Okay, I see a lot of people saying Civil War, LTTE, which is the Liberation of Tigers of Tamil Elam. All right, you know the background. Anyway, so basically, as a result of all this tension, there was civil war in Sri Lanka. Now, what is civil war? We know what a war is, right? Generally, we say that war is fought with another country. But here, civil war was happening, and civil war, what is the difference between civil war and regular war? Civil war is a war that is happening between different social groups living in the same country. So this war is not being fought with an outside country, it's happening within the country itself where there are different social groups fighting with each other. Now, the point is whether it's happening within the country or happening without, outside of the country, war is never a great thing, right? And it leads to a lot of devastation and a lot of destruction irrespective of why it's happening or where it's happening. And so was the case in Sri Lanka also. Thousands and thousands of people lost their lives, right? There was basically people from both the Sinhala and the Tamil communities, they lost their lives. I see a question over there. Sushmita says, ma'am, why were they called Tamil like Sri Lankan Tamil and Indian Tamil? I just explained that, Sushmita. Sri Lankan Tamils were the Tamils who are native to Sri Lanka. Means they were born over there only. They're native to that country, whereas the Indian Tamils are the ones who have come in from India, right? So actually their native land is India, but now they're residing in Sri Lanka, and that's the difference between the two sections, okay? Now, this civil war, like I said, thousands of people lost their lives. So many people were forced to leave Sri Lanka, their own country, as refugees. Now, this is not a pleasant situation. This caused a major setback to the social, cultural, and economic situation in the country. So, as a result, you could not have development over here. And this war went on and finally ended in 2009. So as we see, this is not a very pleasant situation. Sri Lanka is a beautiful country, but the situation that was happening here was obviously not a great situation, right? And with this, we have finished the case study of Sri Lanka. Let us go ahead and let us talk about the case study of Belgium. Let us understand what was happening in the country of Belgium. Now, Belgium, as we can see on the map, has neighboring countries. What are the neighboring countries over here? You have France, you have Luxembourg, you have Germany, and you have Netherlands. These are the countries that are neighboring Belgium. Belgium is basically a country in Europe. And we have the capital city, which is Brussels. Okay, now let's go ahead and understand a little bit more about Belgium. Like I said, Belgium is a country in Europe and it has borders with France, Netherlands, Germany and Luxembourg. Belgium had a population of a little over 1 crore people, right? Now, in Belgium, were there also different social groups like we saw in Sri Lanka? Were there people speaking different languages? Well, yes, in Belgium too, there was an ethnic divide, okay? What do we mean by the term ethnic divide? We mean that this is a social division based on shared culture, where people of a particular group or the same ethnic group as we call it, they believe in their common descent because of similarities of physical type or culture or both, right? So they feel united by language or by culture and basically common descent. Now, it's very important to note over here that it is not necessary that people belonging to the same ethnic group should be of the same religion. They could be different religions, okay? It is not even necessary that people belonging to the same ethnic group should belong to the same nationality. Right? So this social division, ethnic groups are more on the basis of language and culture. Now, we know that there were different ethnic groups in Belgium, like there were in Sri Lanka. Let us understand what the population of Belgium is divided into, right? Okay. Now, the population of Belgium, as I said, was a little more than 1 crore people. How was this population divided? Well, you had 59% of these people who lived in the Flanders or the Flemish region, and they were basically Dutch-speaking people, right? Majority of the people over here were Dutch-speaking. Then you had 40% who lived in the Wallonia region of Belgium, and they were French-speaking. Right? And you had approximately 1% of the people who lived in the eastern region of Wallonia, or east of Wallonia, and they basically were German speaking. Now, what does this tell us over here? What is the majority language being spoken all over Belgium? Well, the majority language obviously is Dutch, as we can see by these statistics over here, right? But it's very interesting. I told you that Belgium, the capital city was Brussels. In the capital city of Brussels, we had an exactly opposite situation. Rest of Belgium, we had the Dutch, which was the majority, right? But in the capital city in Brussels, you had the French, which were the majority, which means we had 80% of the people who were speaking French and just 20% of those people who were speaking Dutch. So you see how the people have been divided across the country and what the different groups are in terms of languages. Now, in terms of this also, was there conflict or was there tension because of these different social groups and the languages that they were speaking? Well, yes, there was, okay. Like I told you, whenever there are different social groups, there's bound to be conflict. It's just about how we manage that conflict. Anyway, to tell you why there was tension over here, now, we just established that the French-speaking people in all of Belgium were basically a minority. Right? We had more Dutch-speaking people. But in the capital city of Brussels, it was actually the French people who were financially and educationally much stronger as compared to the Dutch-speaking people. And this, of course, led to a lot of problems, and there was conflict between the two groups, and basically this led to a widening of the gap between these two communities between the 1950s and the 1960s. Now, think about it. We've seen conflict happening in Sri Lanka. We've seen conflict happening in Belgium. So, what was the result of the conflict in Sri Lanka? It led to civil war, right? But did the same thing happen in Belgium because of the conflict? Well, I'm happy to tell you that, Meena, ma'am, where did the German people live? German people lived in the eastern part of Wallonia, which is a region in Belgium itself, okay? All right. Varshini says, I love Tarana ma'am's teaching. Thank you very much. Yes, Disha, I am coming to accommodation in Belgium. You are absolutely right. There was no civil war in Belgium. In fact, I'm very happy to tell you that Belgium is a very peaceful and a very developed country. So why, in spite of the fact that there were so many social groups, why was there no civil war? Why was there not that much conflict or the effects of conflict so devastating? Well, that is because of the policy policies taken up by the government. The government in Belgium was believed in an accommodation policy and an accommodation philosophy. What does this mean? Accommodation basically means that over here the government wanted to take into account the benefits and the interests of all the communities, all the social groups. They wanted to include everyone in. It didn't matter whether it was a majority or a minority. So, as a result of this belief, what did they do? They went ahead and made 4 constitutional amendments between 1970 and 1993 to accommodate the interests of all ethnic communities of Belgium. Isn't that nice? Let's go ahead and see what these measures were, okay? So, these measures that were taken by the government, number 1, the number of Dutch-speaking and French-speaking ministers will be equal in the government. That is what the constitution laid down, and that is fabulous, right? Because both groups would feel represented and both groups' interests would feel taken care of. So this was a very good move. Apart from that, there were some special laws that could be passed, but these special laws, mind you, required the support of the majority members from each linguistic group. Now, how smart is this? Which means for a special law to be passed, this special law cannot be passed if any of the groups, majority of any of the groups has a problem with it. So when the special law is passed, it needs the majority of both groups, and then the special law is passed, and then later on nobody can really complain about it because the fact is it's been passed with the majority of both. So this, I think, is like a master stroke. It's a very good move over here. Apart from that, what else did they do? Linguistic group, Rishi, is a different group speaking different languages, okay? Linguistic comes from the word language. So when we're talking about linguistic groups, we're talking about different groups that speak different languages. Like in Belgium, for example, Belgium, we have the different linguistic groups are people who speak French and the people who speak what did I say? Dutch, and the people who speak German. In Sri Lanka, we had the linguistic groups were Tamil people and the Sinhala speaking people. Okay? Okay. Fine. Now, what was the third measure over here? The third measure here was a provision of a central and state government. And the state government was not subordinate to the central government. So again, this is a very good move. It had its own powers. It had its own way of dealing with things, right? Apart from this, there was a separate government in Brussels, again, with equal representation of both French and Dutch people. Both French and Dutch communities had an equal say over here because they were both represented. So this is again very, very good news for the people of Belgium, very, very good news for all ethnic groups over here. And to top it all off, you know what the government of Belgium did? Well, yes, I'm coming to that, Atisha. There was also a community government. Neo says, ma'am, not subordinate means not under. It is not lesser than, okay? There was central government and state government, but it's not that one is more powerful than the other. That's basically what it means. Okay. Now, they also established community government in Belgium. Community government is basically elected by people belonging to one language community. So you could have a community government selected by the Dutch people, French people, or German-speaking people, irrespective of where they lived, which means you could have a Dutch-speaking person who, instead of living in Flanders, is living in Wallonia, but he had absolute right to vote for the community government of his choice. And then you had the, supposing you have a French person, French-speaking people in the area of Flanders, still it doesn't matter, the geography doesn't matter, they had the right to vote for this community government. And the community government, what does it do? The community government has the power regarding cultural, educational and language related issues, and we know that these sort of issues definitely will arise when you have different sort of social groups living over there. So this community government was actually set up specifically for this purpose, and I think that is brilliant. And as a result of this, Belgium is a peaceful and developed country. And with this, we have ended the case study of Belgium. Now, what a marked difference between what we saw in Sri Lanka and what we saw in Belgium. Isn't it interesting, right? So now I think it very clearly explains to us our next subtopic, which is, why is power sharing desirable? Obviously, we've taken a look at both the situations and we know that power sharing is so very important. In Sri Lanka, there were social divides or different social groups, but there was a civil war. There was no power sharing over there. Whereas in Belgium, there was no civil war. It's a peaceful country. It's a developed country. Why? Because of power sharing. Power sharing is so very important, right? So, power sharing is desirable because, number one, it is a prudential decision. What is the meaning of prudential? Prudential basically means we had 7% percentage of Christians in Sri Lanka, Rishi. When you go back, you can go back and attend the session again. You will find that it's written on the PPT. Okay, yes, Disha, prudential and moral reason. What is the meaning of the word prudential? Prudential basically means it's a smart decision or it's a wise decision, because if you have power sharing in a country, then this reduces the chances of conflict between social groups, because all social groups are happy over here. So isn't that a smart thing to do? It is prudential, like exactly what we saw in Belgium. The government was smart. They followed accommodation, and as a result, they had power sharing, and as a result, they basically reduced the possibility of conflict, which was not the case in Sri Lanka, where there was no power sharing. Apart from that, there is a moral aspect also. The moral aspect is that a legitimate government is actually one in which all citizens can participate and acquire a stake in the system, irrespective of what social group that they belong to, right? This is the right decision to make. So in this case also, power sharing is definitely a good thing, right? Okay, ma'am, can you repeat what is prudential? Varshini says prudential is basically, the word prudential means smart or wise, right? Prudential, it's a smart or a wise decision because when you have power sharing, it basically reduces conflict and it reduces the tension, because each group feels like they are represented. Okay, now let us move on to our last topic. So we've discussed the case studies of Sri Lanka and Belgium. We've understood through the case studies why power sharing is desirable. Now we are going to talk about the different forms of power sharing, and this is quite easy. Yes, Vartika says decision by wisdom, actually. Absolutely right. Okay, so the first... basically the four types of power sharing is: number one, horizontal division of power; number two, vertical division of power; number three, division of power between different social groups; and number four, power sharing arrangement among political parties, pressure groups, and movements. I will quickly explain each of these. All right, so let's talk about the first thing, which is horizontal division of power. What does this mean? This means, as you can see from the image over here, that power is distributed between different organs of the government. Okay, so power is divided or distributed amongst different organs of the government, such as the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, this is very good because it allows different organs of the government, which are placed at the same level, to exercise different powers, which means each of these different organs of government, whether it is the legislature, whether it is the executive, or whether it is the judiciary, has their own powers, and no organ of government is subordinate to the other, or no organ of government is more powerful than the other. No organ of government has unlimited powers. Why? Because they can all check each other's work. So for example, you have the executive, okay? The executive, which is basically your ministers and the cabinet, they are answerable to the legislature, okay? The judiciary, actually the judges, are appointed by the executive. Right? So in that sense, the judiciary is answerable to the executive. Apart from this, the judiciary can definitely, if it finds that anything that the legislature and the executive are doing that is unconstitutional, the judiciary can actually, sort of do away with that law. So you see, no organ can become more powerful than the other. They can all check each other and check the actions, and this is why this sort of system is called a system or an arrangement of checks and balances. Yes, organs of the power or government, equal distribution enhances the system of checks and balances. Absolutely right, Disha. It is called horizontal distribution, Prachi, because they are all at the same level. I just explained. Nothing is more important than the other. No organ has more power than the other. So when you're talking about the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, they are all at the same level, and that's what makes them horizontal. Let me move a little bit away so you can see exactly what I've said. That's what it means as by horizontal. Okay, let's move ahead. Let's talk about the second division of power. The second one that we're going to be talking about is vertical division of power, right? Vertical division of power is basically division of power in a vertical manner. First was horizontal, this is vertical, which means you have the power divided, as we can see in the image, into the central government, the state government, and the local governments, right? So, once again, I'm repeating, vertical division of power is power shared amongst government at different levels. So, it's vertical. And here we are talking about the center, which is all of the country. We're talking about the state, which is the different states, and we're talking about the local levels, which we know as the panchayat level or the municipal bodies, and this is how the power is distributed. Now, in India, there are different levels of government, as we know, and the constitution very clearly lays down the powers of each of these levels of government, and this is why it is called a federal system of government, federal division of power, but I'm not going to be discussing or going into too much detail as far as federal division of power is concerned. We will be discussing federalism a little later into the term. Okay, now let's talk about the third form of power sharing. The third form of power sharing is power sharing amongst different social groups, where each group basically has the opportunity to come to power. So for example, you could have different religious or different linguistic groups. Now when we spoke about Belgium, we spoke about a community government over there, right? So this is an example of power sharing amongst different social groups, right? Also, if you take a country like India, India also has power sharing amongst different social groups. How? Because we have reserved constituencies and assemblies. So for example, if you take our parliament, okay, we've got reserved seats over there. Like for example, we have 84 seats reserved for the scheduled caste, 47 seats reserved for the scheduled tribes. So each of these social groups feels represented in government, and this is what power sharing amongst different social groups is. And with this, we move on to our last form of power sharing, which is power sharing among political parties, pressure groups, and movements, right? So what does this mean? This means that power sharing over here is very interesting. The people, the political parties, the pressure groups, or the movements have the power to influence those who are in power. So basically, they can influence the government, right, to change their actions. If they feel that the government is doing something wrong, by sheer pressure in terms of movements or in terms of pressure groups, they can actually change what the government is doing and form a check on the government, okay? Power sharing in this way can also be seen in terms of coalition governments. Now, what are coalition governments? Coalition governments is when you don't have a clear majority. No one political party has a clear majority. So what happens in such a case? You have different political parties who are coming together to form the government, right? And so all political parties have their own different ideologies or their own different interests, right? So if you see with the coming together of all these political parties, you're actually representing all the different interests or all the different ideologies, and this is power sharing between different political parties also. Okay, and with this, it's very interesting. It's been so fast and so smooth. We have actually finished this chapter. We finished all our subtopics. We spoke about the case studies of Sri Lanka and Belgium. We understood what was happening in both countries. We understood through these case studies why power sharing is desirable. And we've just finished with the third subtopic, which is different forms of power sharing, where we have discussed 4 forms of power sharing. Now, I hope all of you have been taking notes, okay? Because you will find, like I keep saying, that Amrita says, ma'am, I have a doubt, is vertical sharing of power subordinate? Not really, Amrita, because again, the central government, state governments and the local governments, the constitution has clearly laid down rules of the powers of jurisdiction, right? So it's very clearly defined, right? Just because one is talking about the country, one is talking about the state, and one is talking about the, the local level doesn't mean that it's subordinate. There are clear rules and regulations and powers, and this is done so that it makes it easier to govern such a large country as India, because it's not possible for just the central government to be taking care of all the areas, right? Or just the state government to be taking care of all the various districts and the local level also. So this is a beautiful system. No, it's not subordinate. Okay, now, like I said, we finished this chapter. I hope you've been taking notes. I'm very excited, like I said, to be with you here today. We've kick-started this year with an amazing chapter, and we have lots more in store for you. So I would please make it a point to attend all the classes over here, because in terms of your syllabus, BYJU'S has you covered. We covered the syllabus last year. We're going to do the same this year, and this year is even more exciting because we have lots of time on our hands, and we have the time to practice, we have the time to learn, and so we will, if you attend these classes regularly, then you will find that your learning becomes much, much easier, and you will be able to ace your exams very, very well. So please take advantage of the classes that we have over here. We have a lot of free classes that we have. You will find the link in the description box. So go ahead, please attend these classes. Let us be there for you, please. This is so very important. We love to be there for you, right? But you need to take advantage of what we are putting out for you. So to take advantage of this, please like and subscribe to our BYJU'S 9 to 10 channel, and tell your family, tell your friends, whoever is in the 9th and 10th channel, you can, subscribe to this channel. If you have lower grades in your family or in terms of your siblings, ask them to subscribe to our 6 to 8 channel, because from 6 to 10 we have you completely covered. So please attend our sessions. We really look forward to seeing more of you, and I look forward to interacting with all of you throughout the year. Okay, so that's it from me today. A very, very big thank you, and I will see you in the next session. Bye-bye.